Guten Tag, APUSH. We have a new video today, and it is the bee's knees by the big cheese himself, Mr. Leninger. Let's make history today as we jaw over Unit 1, Day 4. But first, let's do our daily punishment. I had a crazy dream last night. I was swimming in an ocean of orange soda. Turns out it was a fantasy. Fantasy? Your key terms for today are Calvinism, TULIP, which is an acronym, Pilgrim, the Mayflower Compact, Wampanoags, the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Puritans, Anne Hutchinson, and Roger Williams. We're going to go over the religious characteristics, issues facing colonial New England, self-government in New England. But let's start talking off about some of the beliefs of New England. The New England colonies were Calvinist, also called Presbyterians by some people. Calvinists followed the theology and doctrine of Protestant reformer John Calvin. Here are some of the big beliefs of John Calvin. He believed in something called double predestination, that before you were born, God determined whether you were going to heaven or hell from the moment of creation. This was based on the Bible, parts of the Bible that he interpreted. It's kind of a natural follow-up of Martin Luther's theology. He also, like Luther, believed that you are saved sola fide, from faith alone. Good works cannot save a person. The big Puritan beliefs are an acronym called TULIP. Total depravity. People are born with natural sin, original sin, which just kind of blots out any good in a person. People are naturally depraved. Unconditional election. God determines whether you're going to heaven or hell. You cannot do anything about it. Limited atonement. God saves you, but you are still depraved. Irresistible grace. The grace is irresistible. You cannot unsave yourself if God is saving you. And the saints will persevere. Throughout the life, the people that are chosen by God, the saints, will persevere and eventually be saved. Some of the people in England will think that the Church of England is too similar to Roman Catholicism. They call the Church of England crypto-Catholicism. They're going to want to break off from the Church of England and form their own church. Because of this, a lot of them will kind of be persecuted and they'll flee to places like Holland. They'll be called the Pilgrims or the Separatists. And let's talk about the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims are going to separate and flee from to Holland. They still did consider themselves Englishmen, however. So when an opportunity came to settle in a colony in the New World where they could practice their own religion and force people to practice their religion, they're going to take up that opportunity. So they are going to be some of the first people that joined the Plymouth Company, which is a joint stock company. Only half the people that did this were separatists. On aboard their ship, the Mayflower, they will sign a document called the Mayflower Compact. It's not a legal document, but it did promise the idea of self-government and social reciprocity. So it's one of those important founding documents in American history that kind of like slowly leads to self-government. The Plymouth Bay Colony will be led by William Bradford. They will become a Pilgrim colony at first. The Native Americans will be peaceful, otherwise the Pilgrims would have died. They'll actually give the Pilgrims food when they're starving. The Native American tribe were called the Wampanoags. And when the Native Americans gave them food, that's how we get the holiday of Thanksgiving. Let's talk about the Puritans. I love the Puritans. I don't know why I love the Puritans so much. I think I find them funny. I'm not a Puritan myself. I just find their austerity, their religion, their insanity funny. I remember reading The Scarlet Letter when I was in high school, and I was just laughing, which is probably not the reaction you should get from that book. Anyway, the Puritans were also Calvinists, but they wanted to reform the Church of England. They wanted to fix it from within. There will be a great Puritan migration from 1630 to 1643. They're going to settle in another part of what is now Massachusetts called the Massachusetts Bay Company. John Winthrop will be the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. He will be a Puritan. Massachusetts will become the biggest and most influential New England colony. Eventually, it will merge with Plymouth. One of the big speeches that Winthrop made was his speech, City Upon a Hill. It's also called the Model of Christian Charity, and sometimes it's called the Arabella Covenant. Basically, what the City Upon a Hill speech said was that Massachusetts and the Massachusetts Bay Colony will be a city upon a hill for the rest of the New World to look upon, to emulate with their godliness, their Puritanness, and their, just great religiousness. Here is Massachusetts Bay Colony, much bigger than Plymouth Colony, and Plymouth Colony. Eventually, they will join together. Let's talk about the economy of New England. It is going to be fishing, ships, fur trading, and timber. And let's talk about some of the troublemakers in New England. And I love these people. First one is my girl, Anne Hutchison. She took the Puritan idea and the Calvinist idea of you're saved no matter what. And she said, since you're saved no matter what, like God determines whether you're saved or not, there's nothing you can do about it, then you don't need to really follow God's laws. This is actually a very logical idea going from Calvinist beliefs. It's called antinomianism. But obviously, if people believed this, it would cause chaos, political chaos in the colony. So the colonial elders will not be happy at her. Also, she's a woman, and she's preaching. She's leading Bible studies. She's going to upset the church elders because of all these things. And she will be kicked out. When she was pregnant, which is kind of rude, and she will have to flee to Rhode Island. And we're going to talk about Rhode Island in a second. Her and her 12 kids will be kicked out. She had a lot of kids. She'll be kicked out pregnant. She'll eventually die of a Native American attack. Let's talk about my other one, my boy, Roger Williams. He was an extreme separatist. He believed that the American Indians should be paid for land. He thought civil government should not regulate religious rule. At first, he was a big-time separatist. He thought that, there was only a certain amount of the people that were saved from God. Over time, he started looking for signs. One of the things Puritans did for fun is they would look for signs, maybe signs in nature, signs in the weather, that would show them whether they were one of the elect, one of the saved. Really kind of weird. Williams, over time, started to think that he was one of the only saved people. Eventually, he got to a point where he was like, oh, my wife's not saved. She's going to hell. He got to a point where he wasn't even sure if he was saved, if there was nobody being saved. After that, he kind of turned his whole theological, philosophical outlook around. And since he said that since you cannot know who is saved and who is not saved, you need to just give toleration and religious freedom to all people. Since we can't know who is saved, possibly everybody can be saved. So he kind of did a 180. He's going to help form, he'll also be kicked out. He's going to form a colony in New England called Rhode Island. It'll be called Rogues Island by the Puritans. They don't like his tolerance and his niceness to the Native Americans. He'll do complete religious freedom, no tax-supported church, and men could vote. So a little bit more democracy. All right, kiddos. And that is all I have for you for today. We'll continue with the New England and Middle Colonies next class. Until next time, deuces. Deuces, yeah.